Hey, what's up, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to the Pitlane Podcast, episode number 117 today to review that Spanish Grand Prix. Yes, that Spanish Grand Prix. Back with you, your host, myself, Aarav, Callum, and Tom. Yeah, well, we said it in the instant race reaction, and my mood has not changed. That was, not the best Grand Prix ever. It was a pretty bland one, actually. And Cal, you weren't here with the instant race reaction with us, but I think you can probably echo the exact same sentiments as us.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite ironic. We come off the back of a podcast where we talk about tracks and the fact that, we maybe might be sad. Some people will be sad. Some people won't be about we're losing Barcelona off the calendar. Yeah, well, I don't think Barcelona didn't add much to the calendar this year. Let's put it that way. I mean, it was another Mercedes whitewash, which is getting ridiculous now. Even as a Hamilton fan, I'm starting to lose interest a little bit. And I didn't watch the whole race. I'll be very honest, because the Premier League was on, and it was just so much more of an exciting day in the footballing world than what the Formula One world was. But it did pose a few talking points and everything. But just on the whole, I mean, it's starting to outline now. I think everyone's getting from what I can see on Twitter, everyone's getting quite rustled. Everyone's getting a little bit uneasy because we can't continue to keep having Mercedes 1-2s for the whole season. Like, they're bulletproof and hats off to them. But if they're ruining tracks such as Barcelona, where, in the past, we have had decent races, and in F2, even better, we have really good races in F2. It does I think this weekend has kind of just posed an overall question on the sport and the direction it's taking. And I think Martin Brundle alluded to it very well. Yeah, if anyone has read his post, brilliant rant about just the general state of Formula One. And yeah, it has called into question where we're going to go from here and what can be done in 2021 to fix the current issue that we've got.
Yeah, that rant was really good. Like, you could also kind of tell he just kind of started just smashing the keyboard and typing away what he was feeling. Really good, because a lot of the time I feel Brundle always holds back a little bit sometimes with his analysis of definitely. F1 as a whole sometimes, or just when it gets very opinionated even about a driver, he's very held back. But you could tell in that piece, just the way the words were written, he just let go. He was like, I can't be asked for this anymore. That was an atrocious Grand Prix and something needs to change. And yeah, I mean, Mercedes are making history with the amount of 1-2s they're getting in a row here. Best start to the season ever. You can keep saying, yeah, fair enough, GG's, they've done a great job, they've just done a much better job than everyone. They themselves are saying that. Hamilton, Toto Wolff said the same exact thing about, yeah, we're doing a great job, we'd love for other people to do a good job and, take the fight to us, but this is how it is. But it's just a bit, it's got to the point where I couldn't care if it's GG's to them. I'm just like, come on now.
Yeah, I'm about the same, to be honest. I think, it's just, I find it interesting because still, generally speaking, you haven't really seen the fans turn against Mercedes in terms of, if you compare it to how fans turn against Red Bull for their dominance.
No.
I say dominance with a massive asterisk because it wasn't as dominant as people want to say it was, especially considering Mercedes. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Hamilton's a lot more popular than Vettel, I think. But still, as a neutral, I'm very bored now. I am very bored. And you can't hate on Mercedes because they're doing the job. You hate on everybody else, but also you can. There's ways of getting over dominance. So even with the Vettel era with Red Bull, Vettel had a few dominant seasons and whatnot, but there was still a good battle between Lotus, Ferrari, Lotus, Ferrari, Mercedes, and there was some good battles all across the park, and we just don't really get anything now because of also the split of Formula A, Formula B. It's hard to really get interested.
Yeah, there wasn't that back in the day, and then you just got close fighting all the way through. And even when Vettel was out in the lead, you could always be looking at that battle for P2, but there's hardly a battle for P2 anymore either. And especially at Spain, that was pretty much I think literally the words Brundle said was it was over by turn one pretty much, because even though Bottas showed he had maybe enough pace actually on paper to challenge Hamilton lap times wise, just because of the nature of the car and the entire situation, the order was never going to change unless Hamilton had a huge mistake or a pit stop blunder or whatever like that. Even the safety car period, that was neutralised because at the start they both bolted, but then Hamilton got the gap because Bottas was actually backing off to then deploy a fastest lap strategy, and it's it just was not very satisfying to watch. I think all three of us all turned off for the football basically.
Well,
and
as well, it's like there's no frustration towards Ferrari anymore. I'm gonna be quite honest. Like, okay, they've put their hands up.
Actually, we've
gone the wrong way in setup. They've gone the wrong way.
I was
in their
laughing
concept
a
of their
bit.
car.
I was laughing a bit at the instant race reaction about calling them clowns and whatnot. But actually, that's only lasted with me for a day now. Now I'm more like, you know what? It wouldn't even matter, to be honest. Even if they got this strategy right.
Everyone's not. No one's annoyed at anyone. Not everyone's just annoyed at the sport in general.
But even me, after China, I was like, okay. After China, I already knew I wasn't mad with Ferrari anymore, because it wasn't even like they were, tooting their own horn. I think they got to Australia and they were like, okay, we think we've got a fast car, which I think every team says, to be honest with you. Let's be honest.
Yeah, every team does.
This year has purely been made worse because of the Mercedes narrative and because we've eaten everything that that's been told. Mercedes from day one saying, "Oh, Ferrari, you've by far got the faster car. We know we ain't got a chance, and we're trying to keep up," and like all this thing, and then come Spain or Baku, whatever, and there you go, kablamo, literally bang, there's the pace. So like I said to you, Aarava, before in a podcast when we done the last race in Baku, I just said to you, I'm done now. The expectation, just literally expect zero, and then you can't have any worse. And Spain was kind of what I got. And it's just frustrating watching F1 how it is now. I'm not one to moan too much because we've had dominance before, and it's kind of rich as a Michael Schumacher fan, moaning about dominance.
Yeah.
So it's not something I like to talk about too much. But there's different ways of dominance. Like I said before, there's ways and there's ways. Like for example, 2013 Vettel, when he dominated the second half of the season, won 9 races. I still remember Hulkenberg battling for P2 at Korea against.
I still remember USA.
Sauber.
Grosjean's great drive at USA to get the podium. That was a great drive. You remember those things. I won't remember most of these races because they're just that. No. Like they're not. They're not. Yeah, memorable. Like it.
Well, it calls into action literally what we were talking about last podcast with the tracks, and it does link nicely into the news and everything that's been going on about tracks generally. You can't, and we've seen it last year with Canada as a case study.
Yeah,
one of the best tracks for overtaking in recent years in Formula One, and it was a bore fest. And if the current formula of car is making that, and the current formula of the sport is making that circuit boring, then there is something wrong. And it's exactly alluding to what Martin Brundle was saying. The cars are too big, the cars are too heavy, and
they're too fast.
And they're too fast. As much as I like to see the cars pushing these incredible lap times, and even still, I thought into this season, I thought they'd easily lose a little bit of pace, and they're still beating track records. Which I'm like, okay, cool. And again, it does call into action how physical these cars are. The drivers have to be very physical with their neck because the G-forces they're pulling. And it was insane in 2017. They're like, oh my God, they're pulling 1.52 Gs more through corners. I'm not that bothered anymore because you can be pulling as many Gs through the corner as you want, but too many Coopers going side by side would be more entertaining than what a Formula 1 is at the moment.
I don't think too many people have said it, and I mentioned it I think once, a long time ago on the podcast, but I've had this feeling that the cars are just, the main problem is that they're just too fast now. It's simple math. So any straight on any circuit, longer or shorter, that's going to be the main overtaking opportunity, of course, regardless of regulations, wherever the car may be. You make your overtakes on a straight. It just happens in racing. It's normal. But when the current F1 cars can do like 340 on a straight, 335 in a race, like literally in race trim. I remember not too long ago when we had the V8s. You would struggle to get 300. You'd
Red
be like
Bull.
299,
They'd be
298,
297, whatever. Yeah.
40 k's difference. What I'm saying is, translated to race pace, the straight becomes a lot longer. And DRS would be more effective because you'd be getting to the 320s, 315s with DRS. When a car's doing 299 in kilometers, makes a huge difference. When it comes to racing. But generally speaking, the race and the straight becomes a lot longer. The corners as well. Like they're so fast through corners now. Like for example, let's say Spain turn 9 where they go flat out now. You could argue back in 2014, you could maybe get a run on a car through there, maybe make a move. But now it's so hard because they're just easily flat. Turn 3 at Spain, where Alonso made that move in the 2013 Spanish Grand Prix around the outside. That won't really happen now because they go too fast through there. So it's really hard to pull off and execute. The cars, in my opinion, are too fast now. Of something I've accepted and realised.
And also as well with, the faster they are going down the straight, the greater the braking distance, which obviously a shorter braking distance means there's less chance of someone out-braking someone. But yeah, if you reduce, I don't know, just in general, I think it's just such a shame because the problem is now, if you think about the way everything's happened with the regulations, 2009, those regulations were made to improve overtaking, and again, we've had these massive regulation changes, and they're just not making much of an impact.
That's why. Yeah, we need another 09 sort of reset thing with 2021. And Brundle made the point in his article, and we said it as well. About making sure it actually happens. And there's been worries about, in the news about it getting watered down. And as more we go on, as time goes on, it looks like 2021. The changes are going to get watered down, unfortunately. But we do need a massive change. It's happened before in Formula 1. The cars have gone too fast before, and every time the FIA has always slowed the cars down by a massive regulation change. And they just need to make sure they nail that this time.
The early 10, obviously, let's talk 2011, 2012, 2013. Every single year they slowed the cars down.
Yeah, I mean, take 2012, one of the best seasons in Formula 1 ever. That slowed the cars down massively because it took this huge exploit of the blown diffuser, took it away, and they dropped their lap times by more than a second or whatever it was. It was massive.
And the racing was better.
And the racing was better because, then even in 2013, a year later, when they got on top of the exhaust again and they kind of clawed back a lot of the downforce, like Tom alluded to, is a great point about turn 3. You just watch back the POVs of Alonso having to feather the throttle to get around the outside instead of going flat out. We all talk about this, drivers driving flat out. I don't think flat out needs to actually mean flat out in a corner.
No.
Or pushing the tyres, or pushing tyres that don't degrade at all. I think flat out means that they're able to push the limits of the car.
They're not saving.
And if you bring the limits of the car lower, back down to earth, and not these absolute planted on rail cars we have, then you're going to get drivers pushing those limits more. And that's what happened in that kind of period of 2010 to 2013. Drivers were pushing the limits, and even back in the day, they were pushing the limits of what the technology was like then.
But the only problem then was everyone hated that era because, in a way, they were saving tyres. That was the era of tyre saving, but it still had better racing.
Listen, the perfect example is F2 at the end of the day. Obviously, they can't become F2. But the way things are, they go flat out in F2. And the best thing is in F2 is you can kind of choose when it comes to the pit stop, and that's what kind of makes the racing interesting. Because there's those who try to make it happen,
exactly,
save their tyres, go conservative.
If you had a rule of okay, so we're going to make the tyres durable, it's good, so it's not going to be what we had back with the Pirelli pre-V8 era, but what we're going to say then in the rules is you have to make a pit stop at this certain period of time, and then it gives, just like F2, it gives you a choice of that strategy. A driver can try and eke out his tyres in a little bit longer if he wants to make that mandatory pit stop later on in the race, or you make it earlier and go for a more aggressive two-stop. But knowing that they have to make a pit stop means that also they just can't go all the way into the end of the race on one set of tyres, whatever, because that would, in itself would be boring as well.
Yeah.
There's a fine
balance.
But
then again, I think even generally with if we actually link it back to the race, obviously the lack of racecraft, the lack of racing was quite obvious anyway. But even when there was racing, it was a lot of drivers just like Grosjean going off completely into turn 1, or even the accident between Lando and Stroll. I looked at it and I was like, do you know, in general, it was a racing incident, but again, you could kind of point it to how big the cars are. You can't fit two cars side by side through turns 1 and 2 anymore.
I was going to say this. You don't really see cars go too wide for more than 3 corners nowadays anymore, do you?
Yeah, they can't fit.
They're massive. Well, it's like that. Stupid. What was it, that CAD? That someone did a CAD comparison. They took the CAD model of the 2017 car and put it next to the Hamilton's 08 McLaren, and oh my god,
incredible!
It looks like a massive, gigantic F-off boat compared to that car.
But this is why even Monaco now is like. Even
the cars are too big for Monaco. They're actually huge for Monaco.
They're literally boats. I remember actually seeing a few overtakes back in there in Monaco. It was possible. Those kind of, for example, the infamous.
Even 2010. If you go back to 2010 to 2011, look at those cars.
Literally,
remember 2011, Vettel, Button, and Alonso dancing through the traffic. You couldn't go through the traffic like that anymore because the traffic would get in the way too much, so they're too wide.
No, exactly. And I was just going to mention, for example, Schumacher's controversial move on Alonso in 2010 on the last corner.
Yeah.
A car nowadays wouldn't do that because too wide into that final corner is too wide. It doesn't work.
You can't pull off a wide your Fox.
It doesn't happen. So, even the 2010 cars were the exact same size as '08 pretty much. Nothing really changed except for the way the cars look. So
They've
those
just got a bit
cars
longer,
they were
to
just
be fair.
raceable.
Yeah.
They were racy, and that's the beauty of it. They were nimble at low speed as well, which is kind of the problem with these cars. And I think the 2021 regulations that forget like the era. I think first of all the cars need to be smaller, and
Smaller,
this does
lighter.
tie into the tracks because. Don't get me wrong, there's tracks that are better for racing than others. I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. That's absolutely true. Monaco is not the same as Spa. However, I think we're in a stage now where I think regardless of whatever track you put in front of these current F1 cars, it's not going to work. Whether it be Zandvoort, whether it be Spain, or whether it be Silverstone, Spa, Monaco, there's a pattern here. And the cars are just too fast.
And, I mean, they go into Zandvoort, which has been announced this week. In 2020, and I understand. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like atmosphere-wise, it's going to be insane. They're going to get an incredible amount of people go in.
It's a sign of Verstappen how big of a star he is in Formula One now. Like
fair play, I can
Grand
understand
Prix
why
there.
they're going there, but the problem is that circuit. It's just we alluded to it. That circuit's not big enough. It's just not big. If you were going to Monaco, if Monaco was a brand new circuit on the calendar, no, a scrap Monaco, Hungaroring. If you were putting the Hungaroring on the calendar, that you'd be like, wow, there's no overtaking opportunities there at all. Even though it's just a narrow track, and it's just the exact same thing with Zandvoort. And yeah, you can get a good race at Hungary. We've seen plenty of them in the dry and in the wet. But and again, okay, at the minute we're going to be hoping that the Dutch Grand Prix is wet every year. Otherwise, we're not going to get much.
The layout of Zandvoort reminds me. It looks like kind of like a Dutch Jerez, sort of like it's just
a little bit.
It looks like a great testing
speed.
track, but it doesn't look like a great racetrack, especially with these modern cars. It might be a decent racetrack with older generation F1 cars, but with these current ones, it's very much like in a Jerez category for me at least.
It's going to be a fantastic one-lap qualifying track.
Oh, I can't wait to qualify.
Yeah, the pole lap.
I shouldn't be looking forward to qualifying.
That's where the positives end.
The pole lap is going to be insane. It's basically going to be like Monaco. I've now for many years have turned up to the Monaco GP weekend. I always look forward to watching the Saturday more than Sunday. You know, all the people that always complain about Monaco being Monaco, I think they watch Monaco wrong. I always watch it for Saturday. It's where the action is. Qualifying is just amazing to see those cars go round. I think Zandvoort, unfortunately, is going to be like that pretty much with, because those corners are mega. But then you try and picture two cars trying to do that. Nah, just.
The thing is, even the straight ain't long enough. Again, this is the problem. See,
I watched your lap. I watched your lap, and it was like a squirt of throttle, basically. In a way.
It looked like this. And there's the final corner's like a bank, and you can go flat out, and then the straights. It's okay, but this is what I was saying about the faster cars. If you're doing 345 k's in qualifying at full power, the straight's going to be like over in a flash. If you're doing 299, 300, then you got a bit more of a straight there to work with. You know, it could happen. And then again, also if the cars were smaller, the old cars, the narrow cars, again you would get maybe some side by side action to certain corners. But because these things are just so wide and they're literally rocket ships on a straight now, you're not going to get anything.
And in the corners, they're just so grippy in the corners now with the aero. Despite taking the front wing off, I mean, it wasn't enough. We thought it wouldn't be enough, and it's not enough because the bargeboard area is still so complex.
Yeah, I think the introduction of all the bargeboard stuff has not helped in the slightest, to be honest. And also, as well, like we've moved into this. We have literally moved away from mechanical grip into aerodynamic. There's been a shift, and it's more and more on the aerodynamics than it is the mechanical side of it.
Yeah.
To the point where what number's being thrown out now? 5 seconds you've got to be behind someone before, and then you're going to start to be affected. I'm sorry, 5 seconds. Yeah. 5.
Crazy.
You've got to be, and then you've got to be within 1 second just to get DRS.
Yeah.
No wonder cars are struggling to get DRS these days.
We said this in preseason about they should make DRS more shorter so you can pick it up either further back. Or the way.
But people are sick of talking about DRS now, and even I am. I've always defended it because I know why it's there, and I've always defended the idea of getting rid of it now because obviously it would just ruin the racing. But scrap that now because it's just getting a bit ridiculous. And in a sport that I've watched for over 10 years now, I've never had so many bad races in a row like that. And we know we're going to Monaco next, and. Again, like how aarava was just alluding to, you look forward to the Saturday. People pay money to go to watch the Monaco Grand Prix, the Sunday. It's bad. And that's the thing that I keep going back to, is the fact that me, Arav, and Tom, we're going to go to the Hungaroring this year. And I'm not expecting a good race.
I'm prepared for it to
we
be
went
like
to Spa last year and it was an awful
It's
race.
it's gonna be like what Spa was for us last year.
We're paying a good amount of money to not only get there, to go to the track, to spend on like hotels and stuff. Like, we shouldn't, as a spectator, and as well, obviously they've got all these bloody paywalls up and everything. I'm like, what are you hiding? A bad race?
Yeah.
You all that money to watch it awful. I mean, I spent that now TV pass, that day pass. I think it's like £8 to watch the Baku race. Biggest waste of £8 I've ever done in my life.
Not worth it.
Absolutely.
It's not worth, like, even just the actual thought of even watching the Grand Prix. Like, I regret not having other plans on that weekend of Spain, instead of actually staying at home, being well rested, waking up, and then watching the Grand Prix. Like, it just wasn't worth it. Actually, afterwards, I was like, you know what, I could have done a much funner thing last night instead. But it's got to that point. And yeah, I mean, you know what, removing DRS now would just even better show the issues that the cars have. Because then there's no chance.
You wouldn't see an overtake.
Yeah.
It'd be very rare.
So actually, you know what? Yeah, remove it. Because then it really show off what horrendous stage we got to. It's just really... Yeah, it's just meh.
I mean, really I don't want it to be a massive rant in the same way that I don't want to be like... I don't like people ranting about Zandvoort, because it's a brilliant track. Like, it's going to be really, really
Every
good.
track's
and
really good,
everyone's...
let's be honest.
Apart from these Tilkedromes that we're going to, and even like, okay, yeah, Baku I'm not a huge fan of, but it's not bad. But... like, in general, I like to see a bit of variant, and I do like to see the odd classic track. I do like to see the odd street track. I do like to see the new track that comes onto the calendar every so often. But I don't know, if we're slating a classic track coming onto the calendar, that is an issue, because I think it's like Silverstone suddenly being brought back, or I don't know, what's a track that hasn't been on the calendar in a while? Like, it's quite classic. Imola.
Yeah.
If Imola came on back, people would be like. Because I mean,
Imola has a gigantic pit straight, but that's about it. Again,
even then though, like, I doubt there'd be that much overtaking.
You can't race around any track nowadays. It's this is a big reason why we get these Tilkedromes. I think, sure, budget and money's a big factor here, but there's also an element of what's the point in going back to like a Magny-Cours or an Imola when you know you're not going to get good racing.
If that came back onto the calendar, that'd be brilliant.
I mean, I've got something planned for that, but you know, like. There's so many good tracks I used to race at, even Hockenheim, even the old Nürburgring. There's a million tracks, you know, and it's a shame. I was thinking the other day, dare I say, even a track like India would be an interesting. I still found that track interesting in a way, and I think it wasn't as much of a Tilkedrome as the Baku format we have now.
The middle sector was a good laugh.
Yeah, and you know, Korea, I think that was still okay for racing. I don't really remember sitting at Korea and thinking, "God, that was a really bad race." I think Korea always had a couple of good races. 2010, 2013, 2012. They were pretty good races at Korea. So, I saw a good point the other day. I saw a tweet and someone made the perfect point. People complain when they add on these nothing Tilkedrome tracks like Vietnam, for example. But then when they add on a classic track like Zandvoort, they also complain. So.
I think it was Tom from WTF1. I think he tweeted that.
It might have been
people complaining about classic tracks because you can't overtake there, but don't like a Tilkedrome.
So what do you want? But
you can see why they're putting in a kilometre straight at every track now, because they can't overtake each other.
Yeah, they just need to change the cars, and a lot of the issues go away really in terms of tracks. And it's pretty much just to finish off on a point of. 2021, they need to stop this watering down effect that we're seeing so far, because every press release about this new rule set, every time it looks like there's too much compromise. The teams also need to stop getting involved in it. The FIA need to just be like, this is the formula, and if you want to enter the formula, you enter it. If you don't want to, get the hell out. The teams need to stop having a say. The teams need to stop it. I don't care how big Ferrari is a brand. Stop having a say. I don't care how big Mercedes is a brand. Stop having a say. This is Formula One. FI need to go. This is the formula. Get in or get out.
Yeah. Again, like another example is like the push for the 18-inch rims, when that's going to make absolutely no difference to the racing at the minute. Like, that's not important. It's just not important.
Look of the cars. That's about it.
They're just because it's road. It's equivalent to the road cars. Yeah. Okay, I get that, but. That's not really the pressing issue here, let's be honest. There's a lot of other things you could really fix. So, just disappointing.
Yeah,
really.
It's not often we have a whole negative podcast on this channel, but sometimes it does crop up and needs to be said, really. And so yeah, I don't like to be in a negative mood, but
no, I don't.
It really hasn't been a great weekend for the sport.
We got it off our chest.
But the thing is, it just says everything. It's not like, I mean, obviously you can't compare them on the face of it, but generally, like, all three of us were more interested in the Premier League weekend, the final games of the season, than. And
there was a period in F1 here from like 2010 to 20. I want to say like 15, let's say that, where I genuinely would have chosen F1 over a football match. But now, I would definitely, especially over this last Premier League season, I would definitely choose a Premier League match over an F1 race sometimes. Even if it wasn't my team.
This season. Yeah. Even as bad as this season.
Like on Sunday, I didn't care about my own team because we were absolutely rubbish against Cardiff. But the title decider between City and Liverpool was a lot more enthralling than the Spanish GP.
Crystal Palace 5, Bournemouth 3.
Yeah, that as well. That was a banger of a game. Watch that on Match of the Day. Absolute stunner of a match.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just.
And that's what I mean. You call into question. We call it a sport. At the end of the day, you've got to compare against other sports and other entertaining sport. And there's a reason why football does so well, because it's unpredictable.
Yeah.
So we need a bit more unpredictability. Yeah.
I think that's good. That's a very good note. Since we said the exact same word, let's just end it there. So, guys, if you have enjoyed this podcast, or if you've not enjoyed the sport with us, then let us know in the comments below and hit that like button. Let us know your thoughts on this whole topic there. If you want to chime in with your thoughts, if you're only around here to subscribe to this channel for the podcast here, we'll have another one on Sunday to preview the Monaco Grand Prix and talk about some other F1 news we've deliberately not talked about in this episode because we want to kind of keep it separate a little bit, basically, a la kind of Rich Energy. So we'll talk about that on Sunday because there might be some more news that basically comes out that confirms that kind of stuff, maybe actually in this week. If you do like what we do around here, you can support us directly on either Patreon, link in the description, or also GT Mega. If you fancy getting yourself a racing chair, you can use the code PitlaneF1 at checkout. That'll give us a direct kickback. And obviously it's been on screen the entire time, but if you want to have this on the go, you can check us out at Spotify, SoundCloud, or iTunes. But it's been the podcast then for the Spanish GP. We'll see you guys for the next one. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.